Priya Sharma and Arjun Mehta were supposed to be the perfect couple. She, the radiant bride from a respected family, and he, the successful groom with a promising future in Canada. But on their wedding night, inside a suite still glowing with rose petals and candles, their fairy tale collapsed into horror. By morning, Priya was dead, Arjun was covered in blood, and the shocking truth of her hidden double life would unravel into one of the most chilling crimes Canada had ever seen. The wedding was the kind that seemed pulled straight out of a magazine. Guests filled the banquet hall with vibrant silks, glittering jewelry, and the hum of excitement. Every detail had been planned to perfection, from the golden arches covered in fresh marigolds to the carefully chosen menu of Indian and Canadian dishes. Priya Sharma, the bride, was the centerpiece of it all, draped in a crimson lehenga stitched with gold thread that caught the light with every step she took. Beside her, Arjun Mehta stood tall and confident, the groom adored not only for his family's wealth, but for his calm and dignified nature. To everyone watching, they looked like a perfect couple destined for a happy life together. Family elders blessed them. Children ran through the corridors with sweets in their hands, and photographers clicked endlessly to capture each fleeting moment. The rituals stretched late into the night, with traditional chants echoing across the hall, while relatives from India joined those already settled in Canada. There was laughter, music, and the air was heavy with the scent of incense and roses. For outsiders, the marriage symbolized more than love. It was a merger of two respected families, the Sharmas and the Mehtas, promising prosperity and honor for years to come. Yet, within all the glamour and celebration, there were subtle shadows no one paid attention to. Priya's smile was dazzling, but her eyes betrayed a flicker of unease. She clutched her jewelry a little too tightly, paused a second too long during rituals, and avoided lingering gazes when well-wishers praised her. Arjun noticed her nervousness but brushed it off, convinced that every bride felt overwhelmed on her wedding day. The night closed with cheers and fireworks, leaving everyone believing they had witnessed the beginning of a perfect story. Back in India, long before the wedding, Priya Sharma's life was far from the picture of innocence her family presented. She had grown up in a conservative household where appearances mattered more than truth. To neighbors and relatives, she was the obedient daughter, attending religious ceremonies and helping her mother in the kitchen. But behind closed doors, Priya craved a different world, one filled with risk, glamour, and escape from the suffocating expectations placed upon her. By her late teens, she had slipped into circles that thrived in shadows, illegal gambling dens where fortunes were lost and won in a single night. The rush became addictive, and with time, her debts piled up. It wasn't only gambling that consumed her. Priya sought affection and freedom in places her family would never approve of. She entered relationships that were passionate but reckless, attaching herself to men who could offer her thrills rather than stability. One affair grew into something dangerous, tying her even deeper to the underworld that fed her secret lifestyle. The man she loved was charming but manipulative, using her desperation to control her. Whenever debts mounted, he coaxed her to borrow money or make promises she could not keep. Her parents began to notice whispers in the community. There were late nights she could not explain and rumors of her involvement with people considered shameful in their society. Terrified of scandal, the Sharmas scrambled to protect their image. To them, the solution lay in arranging a marriage abroad, far from curious eyes and wagging tongues. Canada seemed like the perfect escape, a new beginning wrapped in respectability. When Arjun's proposal arrived, wealthy and reputable, they seized the chance to bury Priya's past. The wedding was not just a celebration. It was a carefully crafted mask meant to conceal years of secrets. The wedding day unfolded like a grand performance, every hour filled with rituals and celebrations. Yet beneath the glittering surface, small moments revealed unease. Priya moved through the crowd with poise, smiling at relatives and accepting blessings. But there was a stiffness in her gestures that did not go unnoticed. When she sat beside Arjun during the sacred fire ritual, her hands trembled slightly as she adjusted her bangles. At times, her gaze seemed distant, as though she were somewhere else entirely, lost in thoughts she could not share. Guests whispered that she was simply overwhelmed, but Arjun sensed something more, a restlessness that didn't fit the image of a joyous bride. Throughout the ceremony, Arjun watched her carefully. During the signing of the marriage papers, Priya hesitated just long enough for him to feel a surge of doubt. The priest prompted her, and she quickly scribbled her name, yet her reluctance left an impression. Even in the reception hall, surrounded by music and laughter, she appeared distracted. While others danced freely, Priya remained seated, forcing smiles for photographs but never fully present. Arjun's relatives brushed it off, telling him not to worry. They reminded him that brides often feel nervous when leaving their families, especially when moving abroad. Still, he could not shake the subtle warnings he felt in his gut. Priya avoided long conversations with him, answering politely but never opening up, as if guarding something tightly. To everyone else, the evening looked flawless, a union blessed by tradition, wealth, and fortune. But for Arjun, a quiet discomfort grew stronger with every passing hour. He dismissed it as paranoia, convincing himself that love and time would ease her nervousness. What he didn't realize was that her silence carried the weight of truths that could not stay hidden for long. The celebrations finally drew to a close, and the newlyweds were led to their honeymoon suite, a room decorated with delicate rose petals, scented candles, and golden drapes that shimmered under soft lighting. For everyone else, it was the perfect ending to a day of joy, but for Arjun it felt strangely heavy, as if the silence between him and Priya carried a meaning he could not name. He tried to embrace the moment, convincing himself that the unease he felt earlier would disappear once they were alone, but the atmosphere only grew more unsettling. Priya moved about the room quietly, avoiding his eyes, her movements deliberate yet tense. She changed out of her bridal attire, folding each piece carefully, as if prolonging the task to delay what came next. While she was in the bathroom adjusting her jewelry and makeup, Arjun's attention drifted to her phone resting on the dresser. The device buzzed with a notification, its screen briefly lighting up in the dim room. At first he ignored it, telling himself it was nothing unusual, but curiosity gnawed at him. The name that appeared on the screen was unfamiliar, and the tone of the previewed words did not seem innocent. Something about it stirred suspicion so strong that he reached for the phone, unable to resist. The more he stared, the more his heartbeat quickened. What was supposed to be the beginning of a tender night was overshadowed by doubt creeping in like a shadow across the room. He placed the phone back, trying to steady himself, but the glow of the screen felt like a threat waiting to be exposed. Priya returned, unaware of what had happened, yet the air between them shifted. For Arjun, the wedding night was no longer about romance. It had become the doorway to something darker. Arjun's hands shook as he unlocked Priya's phone, torn between guilt and suspicion. What he found was far worse than anything he had imagined. The first message was from a man who spoke with confidence, as though Priya belonged to him. The words were intimate, mocking her new marriage and assuring her that what she had with Arjun was nothing compared to their own bond. Arjun scrolled further, his heart pounding harder with each revelation. There were months of conversations hidden within the device, messages laced with promises of secret meetings, confessions of love, and plans that excluded him entirely. The more he read, the clearer the truth became. Priya had not entered the marriage with devotion. She had been living a double life. One foot in the respectable world her parents displayed, and another in a hidden relationship that defied everything the marriage stood for. Photographs appeared in the gallery, smiling images of Priya with her lover, arms intertwined in hotel rooms and restaurants. Each picture felt like a knife, cutting deeper into Arjun's pride and trust. What horrified him even more were the financial records stored in her emails. Screenshots of transactions, desperate pleas for money, and gambling debts spiraled across the screen. Priya had been borrowing large sums and sending payments overseas, her lover involved in every detail. It was clear she had been sinking into a world of addiction and deceit, using others to prop up her secret lifestyle. Arjun sat frozen, unable to reconcile the woman he had married with the stranger revealed in those messages. The grand wedding, the blessings, the promises, it all felt like a cruel performance. Betrayal pressed down on him like a weight, and in that moment, the fairy tale life he imagined collapsed into something unrecognizable. The silence in the suite grew unbearable as Arjun sat with Priya's phone in his hand, his chest burning with anger and humiliation. The weight of what he had uncovered was too much to contain. Every blessing spoken at the wedding, every smile shared with family, now seemed like a mockery. Rage built inside him like a storm breaking free, drowning out reason and replacing it with violent impulses. The carefully decorated room, meant to symbolize love and union, transformed into a prison filled with betrayal. Priya sensed the change instantly when she emerged from the bathroom. The sight of Arjun's expression, his clenched jaw, his trembling hands, the fury radiating from his eyes, told her that her carefully guarded secrets were no longer hidden. Panic flashed across her face, but before she could respond, his anger erupted. Arjun lashed out, striking her in a frenzy fueled by heartbreak and wounded pride. The rose petals scattered across the bed, the flickering candles, the golden drapes, all bore silent witness to the violence that consumed the room. Each blow landed harder than the last, driven not just by jealousy, but by the crushing realization that his entire future had been built on lies. Priya tried to shield herself, but his rage was relentless. The room filled with sounds that did not belong to a wedding night. The dull thud of impact, the crash of furniture, and the heavy gasps of a man blinded by rage. When it was over, Priya lay motionless, her body broken beneath the remnants of the celebration. The suite that had once glowed with warmth and anticipation was now a chilling scene of destruction. In a single night, love had turned to fury, and a union meant to last a lifetime ended in irreversible tragedy. Arjun stood over Priya's lifeless body, his chest heaving, his mind clouded by panic. The reality of what he had done struck him with crushing force. The room, once filled with wedding decorations, was now a battlefield of overturned furniture, scattered petals, and bloodstains that no amount of cleaning could erase. Fear gripped him, stronger than his rage had been moments earlier. If anyone discovered the truth, his family's name would be destroyed, his future obliterated. Desperation pushed him toward a reckless decision. He would try to cover up what had happened. He dragged Priya's body toward the broken table, arranging it in a way that suggested a fall. He smeared the blood, hoping to disguise the violence as an accident. His hands shook uncontrollably as he wiped surfaces, attempting to erase fingerprints and stains, but every move seemed only to make the scene more suspicious. The scent of iron mixed with fading incense hung heavy in the air, a reminder that no ritual could cleanse what had taken place. Arjun's mind raced with possible explanations, but none seemed believable. He rehearsed excuses in silence, clinging to the hope that the night could still be salvaged with lies. Yet the sound from earlier had already betrayed him. In the hallways of the hotel, neighbors had heard crashes, muffled cries, and frantic movements. Some had whispered among themselves before alerting the front desk, their unease too strong to ignore. By the time Arjun attempted to compose himself, it was already too late. Hotel staff knocked on the door, their concern evident, and suspicion hung in the air. The cover-up, hastily crafted in fear, was fragile. Every misplaced detail, every stain left behind, threatened to unravel the story he desperately tried to construct. The illusion of control was slipping away. The arrival of police officers turned the wedding suite into a crime scene within minutes. The romantic decorations, flowers, candles, and silken drapes, were photographed alongside bloodstains and shattered furniture. Arjun tried to repeat his rehearsed story, insisting that Priya had slipped and fallen, but his nervous movements and trembling voice betrayed him. Detectives quickly noticed inconsistencies. The bruises on Priya's body did not match the pattern of simple fall, and the injuries were too extensive to be accidental. The broken table he pointed to looked staged, its edges smeared clumsily with blood. Forensic experts combed through the room, collecting every fragment of evidence. Blood spatter on the walls suggested repeated blows rather than a single impact. Fibers from Arjun's clothing were found beneath Priya's nails, pointing to a violent struggle. The hotel security cameras revealed Arjun pacing the corridor in the early hours of the morning, his agitation clear as he moved back and forth outside the door. Witness statements from neighboring guests added further suspicion. Several had heard loud thuds, sharp crashes, and muffled cries, none of which matched his explanation. The discovery of Priya's phone sealed the direction of the investigation. Hidden within it were the very messages and photographs Arjun had seen, evidence of her secret life and the betrayal that had triggered his rage. Detectives now had both motive and proof of deception. News of the case spread quickly, reaching headlines across Canada and making its way to India within days. Reporters swarmed outside the hotel and the courthouse, eager to dissect every detail. What had begun as a story of love and tradition had transformed into an international scandal, exposing hidden truths that neither family had ever wanted revealed. The investigation was no longer just about a crime. It was about unraveling a double life. The trial that followed became a spectacle, drawing crowds of journalists, curious onlookers, and grieving relatives. The courtroom was filled with tension each day as prosecutors and defense attorneys clashed over what had happened on that fateful wedding night. The prosecution painted Arjun as a man consumed by violent temper, someone who chose to unleash brutal rage instead of walking away. They emphasized the brutality of Priya's injuries, showing photographs and forensic reports that silenced the room with their stark evidence. They argued that no amount of betrayal could justify the level of force used. The defense, however, built their case around provocation. They presented Arjun as a man blindsided by shocking revelations, humiliated on the very night he was meant to celebrate his future. They introduced Priya's secret life to the jury, her affair, her debts, her double existence, as context for Arjun's breakdown. While not denying the violence, they attempted to frame it as an uncontrollable outburst from a man whose trust had been shattered. The Sharmas sat in anguish, forced to hear their daughter's reputation dissected in public, while the Mehtas struggled to defend their son's honor in the face of damning evidence. The media sensationalized every twist, broadcasting headlines that alternated between condemning Arjun as a murderer and exposing Priya's hidden life. Supporters on both sides argued fiercely, some insisting Arjun was a monster, others claiming he was driven to the edge by betrayal. Witnesses testified, experts debated psychology and intent, and every word was scrutinized. Day after day, the trial revealed not just the crime, but the fractures within two families crushed under the weight of shame and grief. The court became a stage where love, lies, and violence collided, and the world watched, waiting for the final judgment that would seal Arjun's fate. The jury deliberated for hours before returning to the courtroom, the atmosphere thick with anticipation. When the verdict was read, guilty of second-degree murder, the weight of the decision settled heavily on everyone present. Arjun's face remained expressionless, but his shoulders slumped as the reality of a long prison sentence took hold. The Mehta family wept quietly, their once proud image shattered in the public eye. Across the room, the Sharmas sobbed openly, mourning not only the loss of their daughter, but also the painful exposure of a life she had hidden from them. The judge's words were stern, emphasizing that no betrayal, no matter how devastating, excused the brutality that ended Priya's life. Arjun was sentenced to decades behind bars, his future reduced to cold walls and iron bars. The case was closed in the eyes of the law, but the emotional aftermath lingered like an open wound. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed, microphones flashing as they narrated the fall of what had once been hailed as a fairy tale wedding. The story spread far beyond Canada and India, igniting debates about honor, secrecy, and the pressures that drive families to conceal uncomfortable truths. Commentators dissected every aspect of the tragedy: Priya's hidden gambling debts, her affair, Arjun's violent outburst, and the cultural weight of family reputation. In the months that followed, both families retreated into isolation. The Mehtas struggled with shame, their son forever branded a murderer. The Sharmas carried the dual burden of grief and scandal. Their daughter remembered not only as a victim, but also as a woman who lived in shadows. What began as a celebration ended as a cautionary tale whispered across communities. Secrets buried beneath appearances can resurface with devastating consequences, leaving only broken lives and unanswered questions behind.